morning, and thank you so much for joining us today for our third Coordinated Assessment and Placement System, or CAPS, training. We are really grateful to have such great partners in Craig and Robin at HRA, and that they are willing to take the time to present for our community. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. This is being recorded and will be posted on our website. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please put them in the Q&A box. The Q&A will be monitored, and questions will be responded to as the presentation is going, and then at the end. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Robin. Once again, thanks so much for joining.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Emily and Tiara and everyone at the network for hosting and for really helping to get the word out. My name is Robin Pagliuco. I'm the Director of Coordinated Entry at HRA. I'm going to kick us off with a brief overview of what you're going to see. Then I'm going to turn it over to Craig Retchelis, who's going to walk you through a demo in the system of what it is that I'm talking about. So I'm going to share my screen. And if I could just get a yes, I can see you, that would be great from someone, since I can't see you all anymore.
Yes, we can see you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Craig. So we're going to talk through upcoming TAD requirements that are going into effect June 30th, which means that beginning July 1st, you are going to need to do these things in order to successfully submit your TAD. So there's a few enhancements that we put in the system in March that's going to make this easier. I'll briefly talk about the requirements that are going to be in place, but Craig is really going to walk you through them in the system. And then talk about vacancy control and the role of the coordinated entry team and the role of the vacancy team in helping you meet these requirements. So first, I want to give a huge shout out to all of the providers on this training who have done so much work in the system since we went live in October. I cannot overstate how incredible it has been working with all of you. And it's your feedback that really inspired us to put these fixes in place. So there's a few key things that I just want to draw your attention to that Craig, again, is going to go over. In the tenant roster, you can now delink a tenant from the unit. So that means if you move John Smith into 1A, but that actually wasn't the right move, you can just unlink John Smith from 1A and he will stay on that tenant roster. The same with if you need to switch a unit, right? So you move John Smith into 1A, he's supposed to be in 1B. As long as 1B is online and ready to be occupied, you can simply update that unit number and move the tenant within the same program, right? And the tenant will all of these movements take place within the same program. Another big change that Craig, again, is going to go into in more detail is adding tenants either with an HRA ID, meaning they have a supportive housing application, or without an HRA ID, meaning they don't have a supportive housing application. If your client has an approval, a supportive housing approval after January 1st, 2013, they will have an HRA ID in the system, right? If the client has an approval that's before January 1st, 2013, you're going to enter some basic demographic information for that client. Another change that we implemented in the system has to do with the unit roster and the changes that you can make to both occupied units and unoccupied units. I'm going to let Craig show you this in the system because it's much clearer, and we will be sharing this PowerPoint with everyone after the presentation, but you can make changes like changing the unit name. When many of you started setting up your programs in CAPS when we launched in October, sometimes the unit names were entered as Pop B scattered site for all 25 units. Now you can go back and change that unit name so that you can enter them as actual numbers, right? So unit 1 through 20, or if you have a brand new building and you didn't have the unit numbers at the time, you can now edit that. when you can also edit the contract agency with the exception of DHS SRO units. Those units, the contract agency cannot be edited. And again, Craig is going to go into more detail when we actually go into the system. So that's a high level of the pieces that we're going to demo for you. And that really sets us up for what is going to be required come June 30th. So for your July TAD submission, you're not going to be able to submit if you have fields missing. So you're going to need to complete all 3 rosters before you submit. What the system will do is it will give you an error message that tells you exactly what's missing and what needs to be corrected. And it'll also give you blue icons on the actual unit where you need to go and make corrections or additions. So it really tries to be as helpful as possible to make sure that you complete all the fields before you submit. So within the unit roster, you're going to need to have the name, the contracting agency, the status, the unit type, as well as at least one unit feature or rental subsidy. So this is really important that you have to enter at least one value in these fields before you can proceed. So Craig will talk more again in detail about this when he gets into the system. And if you have questions as you're completing this, please reach out to your TAD liaison and we can help answer them if there's any confusion about what rental subsidy you want to be entering into that field. And then for your referral roster, the same thing. If you have overdue referrals that are in your pending queue, you're going to have to update them to clear them. Otherwise, you won't be able to submit. And the great thing about the referral roster is if you have referrals sitting there for a client, you can simply move them directly into a unit from that roster. The same for your tenant roster. So as many of you know who are familiar with the system, tenants migrated over from packed into caps. So your job now is to actually assign them to a unit. So if you have tenants that are not assigned to a unit and are hanging out on your tenant roster, you're not going to be able to submit your TAD. Please pardon my background noise. So all of these rosters are going to need to be complete before you submit the TAD beginning July 1st. So the vacancy control piece, right? Who's monitoring what and how you get assistance with different pieces of your TAD submission. My team, the coordinated entry team, we are verifying all of your move-ins and move-outs in real time, right? So if you're getting a little message saying move-in verification pending, that means that my team is still reviewing the move-in and will process it shortly. And as you all know, if you have any questions or concerns with your TAD submission, you come directly to my team, our TAD liaisons. That's Reina Machado, Kenya Maldonado, and Crystal Ruff. We're happy to help you. When it comes to vacancy verification, right, that's a different verification. That's the OSAS team. That's the Office of Supportive and Affordable Housing and Services. That's Patricia Dawson and Melody Reed and Jonathan Ford, the folks that are actually verifying the vacancy, whether your unit is online or offline. So they're the folks that you want to be reaching out to for the vacancy verification. And they're the ones that are going to be sending you referrals for these Gen Pop DHS SRO units. And then for folks that are still having some trouble with the system, or you have questions around access or getting set up, HRA CAF support, the email is here. They are very, very responsive. And there's also an icon at the bottom right of your CAP screen that Craig will point out to you, where you can click for support while you're in the system. And as maybe Emily mentioned, I can't recall, this is the first of 3 trainings that we will be doing on these new TAD requirements. And the network will also be posting this on their website. So if you have colleagues that weren't able to make it, you can access this at a later time and have the PowerPoint for reference. So I am going to turn this over to my colleague, Craig Retchless, and he's going to walk you through the system and actually do demos of the things that I just talked about. And as Emily mentioned, if you have questions throughout, please post them in the Q&A. I will not be able to answer questions like John Smith can't get into 2E, please help me right now, right? But I can answer general questions. And again, if you have further questions, you can just follow up with your TAD liaison or HRA CAS support. So Craig, it's all you.
Uh-oh, did we lose Craig? There he is.
There he is. Okay.
I'm here, of course. You know, as soon as you handed it off to me, the doorbell rang. So, you know, things like that happen. Anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. And I do want to say, echo Robin's big thank you to supportive housing providers for helping us to stand up the new CAP system. We've been having great communication with a lot of different supportive housing providers, and everyone has really been wonderful, constructive, patient, and I just want to say we do appreciate it. So as Robin said, I am your demo guy today, and I'll be showing you how to manage all your rosters and submit your TAD report. And you know, this is a monthly task in the system, and so you know, we had the foresight to say, let's not do the requirements right from the beginning. Let's allow our users to submit TADs without having to do all the tasks of the TAD in order to, you know, give them some time to learn the system. And we made this we talked about this in our announcement, you know, to everyone. If you saw that, it came out at the beginning of this month, kind of giving everyone a heads up that, you know, we are moving towards this, having the TAD requirements in place. And we just want to make sure everyone is prepared. Like Robin said, there are some new enhancements in the system. We think, you know, we definitely needed those new enhancements before we went to the TAD requirements on June 30th. And so anyway, without further ado, let me hoping for a good technical, no technical issues here. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to take a look at the system. Okay, if I could just get somebody to acknowledge I'm sharing my screen properly.
We can see it.
Awesome. All right, great. Okay, so just a few housekeeping things. I am in a, as you can see by this green highlight here, I am in a UAT environment. That is a training environment. That means you will not be seeing actual client information in this, so no, you know, no problems with, you know, that. I am in as a housing provider. So this is what, you know, someone who is a system administrator in our system would see. And so why don't I go into the first part of the demo, which is I'd like to demonstrate for you how to complete your unit roster. And this is, you know, so what I'm leading up to is that you need to have all the tasks done for the unit roster, the referral roster, and the tenant roster, and then you come to your TAD. And if all of those things are done in the TAD, it's just a matter of submitting it. You would be able to submit it. But if there's anything that is not addressed in any of those rosters, that's a requirement, then you're going to see, and I'm going to show you in the system what that looks like. Okay, so let's start with a unit roster. And I am going to go to this site and So the first thing I'd like to show you is that this is, see this here at the top, this is your unit roster counter. So this is counting how many units out of the number of units contracted in our system that you have actually filled out information on. And so I'll look through, so your first task is to look through the unit roster and make sure we have the right number of, excuse me, the right number of units dedicated to the appropriate primary service contract. So on this roster, it's showing that I have 29 units and I've entered 29 units into the system, community units. And then for the eShy, I have 42 units and I've entered 42 units. But for the New York 1 at this site, I only have 1 unit entered out of 42. So that kind of illustrates to you what the unit counter does. That helps you to kind of determine. So what I need to do is, let me show you first. So this is the unit counter, and then down below you'll see the actual unit roster for that particular primary service agreement. So you see here, this is the unit, the list of units and the details that were entered for the units. Okay. But I'm going to the New York 1 unit contract because there's only 1 unit filled out. And guess what? That was a placeholder that HRA in our data migration put into the system. So you may encounter this, and what you can do is you can add units to this to then increase the number of units. So what you're going to want to do is, if I have a contract for 42 New York 1, I need to have all of those units entered. So I'll show you how to add a unit. So what you can do is you can start right in this section here. Let's put the unit name is test 1A. Let's say that these are OMH funded units. The unit status, I'm going to put online. The offline function, that is, that will show you, you'll have to select an offline reason and when you expect it to come online. And for the DHS, HRASRO units, this then goes to the vacancy team in order to verify that offline unit. But with the regular units, it doesn't go to that team, just the DHS, HRASRO. And then I'm going to say it's a studio. This is not a walk-up. We'll say it's a private bathroom and private kitchen. And then we're going to say there are no subsidies, but you see the list of subsidies there. There's a whole laundry list of subsidies that can be attached to the different programs, supportive housing programs. So so I filled out the form. You see that this is grayed out. That means that I cannot amend that when it's grayed out like that in the system. All right, so that because I'm in this contract. So I'm going to add this, and I get this green that I've added it successfully in the corner. That's a good sign. And then you can see down here, I have added unit test 1A to my roster. And then I'm going to go back up, and then you see I have 2 out of 42 units entered on the roster. So this is good. This is keeping me on task, right? So I just have 40 more units to go. But I do want to show you one other thing, because this one was a placeholder unit. So I can edit this unit as well, and I'm going to need to, because of course the unit name is not to be provided, right? And we want to, we want to make sure that all of the information is correct on this. So what I could do is I could make this test 1B, right? So I'm editing this unit now. This is OMH, it's online, it's a studio. This unit, we already had some unit features added, and that it has a rental subsidy of Section 8. And this is the primary service contract, and I'm gonna save this. And the reason why I was able to edit all of those functions is because it was not occupied, and I'll go over that as well with you. So then you can see here that I have test 1A, test 1B. I'm still at 2. If I add another unit, this unit counter will go to 3 out of 42, and you get the point then, right? So now I'd like to show you in another site. Let me go to another site, because I'm going to show you how some of the fields may be different, like in your unit roster, what some of the fields may be different in terms of what you can edit. So I'm going to go back to my, I can go here and then go back to my dashboard, right? I go to my unit roster again. I'm going to go to another unit roster to show you. And then I'll select all here. This is all of my units. So it's quite a number of units we have here, 101, not 101. So I've already added all of my units for this, this roster. And then what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you, and then here is great, just to, you can see that, like, if you want to just focus on, 4H, there's some nice bells and whistles in the system that can help you to kind of focus on the work at hand. So I want to do occupied units, and I wanted to show you the difference. So for this unit here, let me see. So I'm going to try to edit that unit. I mean, a lot of the information is already populated. So you can see this is DHS, HRA, SRO unit, right? And so the unit is now grayed out, unit name. The contract agency is grayed out. This is always grayed out for DHS, HRA, SRO units. And then because it's occupied, I can't change the status of this. But I can go in and change other status, like the unit type, the unit features, and the rental subsidies. So I wanted to show that the difference. So when a unit is occupied, you see you cannot really, for 1T, you cannot really edit some of the different, like the unit name and the unit status. That's an important thing to know. And then let's differentiate that with a unit that is online and not occupied. So I could go to this unit here. This is an SMI unit, but also the contract agency. So you see here, I can edit the name, I can edit the unit status because this is unoccupied. All right. So the final thing I want to show everyone on the unit feature is, let me just refresh here. There's one function I want to show you. So this roster looks fairly complete as you scroll through it. There's a scroll down here. So you see it's mostly complete. And the unit roster really is about, you know, kind of all of those fields that I showed you. It's not about the tenants so much, right? If the tenant is in the roster, in the unit, you've already assigned them or moved them in, then you see how that impacts your ability to edit that unit. So I'm looking through this and it looks like I'm pretty well, you know, done with my unit roster. But there's another way you can check that. You can export here. This will take all of these fields here and export it to an Excel file. So if you're good in Excel, this can help you kind of slice and dice and figure out like what you don't have in the system. So I wanted to point that out to you guys. All right, so that is it for the unit roster. I am gonna now move on to my tenant roster because that is where we have some really great enhancements that I wanted to show you. These were issued, we did a guide called March 2021 enhancements. And so I would encourage everyone to go to that guide and we will distribute that with the presentation just to reinforce it. So I've selected my program here and I'll go to, this is my tenant roster. See, I'm in my tenant roster and these are my tenants. And you remember that Robin was saying that if, you know, if you had tenants in the old system, in the PAC system, we migrated those tenants over to the new system, but we didn't know where to assign them, right? And because you were gonna fill out all of the unit information in the system for us, and then you would assign the tenants. So I have the tenants here unassigned. You see they're in orange on my tenant roster. And so I can go in and I'm just going to demonstrate how to assign them. So I'll assign this tenant to a unit. So when I do that, all of my unoccupied units come up. So I'm going to assign this client to 1P. Right, there we go. Get the green up top, that's good. And then you can see 1P is now unit occupied and not unit online. I'm going to assign this client to 1Q. And there we go. And so there you go. So now I have my clients assigned, but you know, maybe I made a mistake in assigning, you know, these tenants to 1P and 1Q. So maybe what I want to do is maybe I assign, you know, 108, the tenant 108,976 to 1P, but really I meant for them to go into 1Q. Or maybe they actually were in 1R. So here we go. And what I could do is I have two options. And the delink option to delink a client is important because you may have all of your units occupied. And so you may need to delink a client from the unit in order to get them into the right unit. So when I delink them, now all of this can happen. You can manage all of this without it going to HRA for verification or anything. These are your management tools for your tenant roster. I wanted to reinforce that for you. So I delink my client 108,976 from 1P, and then I could assign him to 1R because this unit is also online. Or I can, let's go back, assign to 1P again. All right. So I assign him back. If I wanted to switch these clients, 1P and 1Q, I would have to delink both of them, right? So I delink him from 1P. This is very easy. I delink the client from 1Q, right? Or what I could do is, so I can then assign this client to 1P. See, this is all, I'm doing all of this. It doesn't go anywhere to like HRA. This is just me managing. And then I can assign this person to the 1Q. So I switched them around. All righty. So that's a wonderful thing. Also, I could delink a client, or I can, let me show you the other feature. Maybe this client, as I was saying, isn't in 1Q, is in 1R. I can then update the unit. So the update the unit will show, again, any unit that is online and unoccupied. And so I can then update that client. I don't need to like delink them. I can just update them. It's going to ask me if I'm sure. And then you see here, I move that client into 1R. So these are all really good ways for you to be able to manage your tenant roster. If you have any questions on that, we can go through that. Now, this is something that I wanted to highlight for folks. This is something that Robin had mentioned. If you have this little eye icon, this is saying that, you know, this unit is offline, and that it is, you know, the 1S, that unit is offline. So I'm going to show you later that, you know, you're going to get, if this isn't verified by the HRA vacancy team, you're going to get like a little info button or info message in the system on those units. So that is the tenant roster. So I showed you the update unit number function, and then I showed you the delink tenant function. These were both part of the March enhancements. So we have a guide that will, if you missed any of that, we have a guide that can show you how to do that. All right. And then what I would like to do now is I'd like to show you the way to move a client in on your tenant roster. Let me pause here. And Robin, are there any questions that have come up that I can address at this point? We've gone over the unit roster and the tenant roster.
You know, Craig, there is a good question that I'd like to share with the larger group that did come up in the chat.
Yeah.
If there are units missing from your contract, for example, the system says you have 42 units, but you actually have 45 units. So what do you do then? If it's a DHS SRO contract, you would contact your whoever your liaison is in that office, right? Melody and Jonathan's team. Yeah. If it's not a DHS SRO contract, you contact your coordinated entry team. And what we'll do is we'll confirm that your contract is in fact 45 units, and we can add those additional units to your contract. Right. The same if you have extra, right? The system says you have 50, but you only have 40. So go ahead and reach out and we can make those adjustments for you to make sure that we get the numbers correct. So that was a great question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So to illustrate what Robin is saying in the system, you would be in your unit roster, right? And then here are your Gen Pop units. These are DHS SRO contracted. You can see here in this that what the contract agency is. So this you know, if you're saying like, no, I don't have 11 Gen Pop beds. I have more than that. That question, like she said, would go to the HRA vacancy team, and we kind of differentiate between their team and the coordinated entry team, like who to go to for these questions. If you came to us at coordinated entry, that's fine too, but we'll just kind of redirect you, right? So, because we'll need you to go to the source on that one. Now, if it was, say, the other program that I was showing you, and they were eSHI units, and you're like, no, it's not 42 eSHI units that I have. These are not DHS contracted. These are OMH contracted units. What you would do is you would contact the coordinated entry team. They would then reach out to OMH and confirm that that indeed is the contract number that you are saying. So we have to verify all that in order to make changes in the system. Now, I would say that before you contact us, you could also contact your contracting agency and make sure, and then share that email with us. That would save everyone a step. All right, but you don't need to do that exactly. But if you would, if that's something you want to do, that would be good. It would save us a step. Okay.
Oh, Craig, I'm so sorry. Something else
Yeah.
just came in. I
Yeah.
think this is a good spot to highlight. What about shared units, right?
Ah.
What about shared units?
Okay, let's go back. I did want to make the, so let's go back to our New York 1 and roster here. And so, I made this for like a congregate program. This is a congregate program, but why don't we just go through, let's pretend that this is not studios. This is actually a suite situation, right? And so if on the door, you know, like there's a couple different unit types. There is a suite unit type, and Robin, correct me if I'm wrong on this at all. There's a suite unit type, and then there's an SRO suite unit type. Now you're like, what is the difference between those two? Okay, so I'm gonna tell you. So with the suite, that means that, you know, there is like, let's say a large apartment that contains the kitchen and the bathroom and all of the different bedrooms, and it's a shared unit, right? The SRO suite is different. That's usually that you have, it's more of a dormitory type situation where you have your own room, maybe you have like a little kitchenette, but maybe there's shared bathroom, maybe there's a shared full kitchen on the hallway, that kind of thing. So that is the distinction. Did I get that right, Robin?
Yeah, that is correct. The specific question that I just wanted to address was when you're labeling those units, essentially a unit is a bed. So if you have a suite that has 4 apartments, you're going to enter apartment 1A-1, 1A-2, 1A-3, 1A-4. So that way you're really tracking. The way the system works is one client for one unit.
Right. Right. So in the suite, you're going to label the unit type as a suite. And like Robin said, it's going to be, let's say, 1A-1. And then this is, you know, the same thing. But this is not going to be private bathroom or kitchen, right? So we're going to be saying no to that. And then we'll just say that doesn't have a rental subsidy. And then I would add it here. And then you would say for the other bedroom in the suite, 1A-2. And then let's make that OMH, the unit status online, suite, no, no, and none. Okay, and then I'll add that. All right, and then you can kind of see here, this is the first bedroom in the suite. This is the second bedroom, right? This is the name on the door leading to the apartment, right? So that's a good way to name your units when you have a suite situation. The only other thing I wanted to mention is, say this was a scattered site. This is a good tip that Robin is kind of reminding me of. So a scattered site unit, what we've asked people is to include the address in the name of the apartment. So say 10 Main Street, number 1. You know, that way, if you have multiple units at an address, you would be able to then distinguish them by the address. So this would be a good way to, in your scattered site units, to name the unit and then add them. OMH, online. This is a studio, and it's a walk-up, but they have the private bedroom and kitchen, and none. And then I will add. And then you can see I'm doing all of this. And then you see down here, because you want to be able to identify it when you have your unit roster, your list. And you know, when you export to Excel, you want to have it very clear, you know, in your unit roster, you know, which apartment is which. So unit naming convention can be a really good way for you to stay organized in the system. All right, Robin, can I move on to tenant roster now?
Yes, and folks that are putting your questions in, those are great questions. And remember that we'll also have time at the end of the presentation for additional questions. So yeah, Craig, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with the tenant roster, I'm back at my, I'm looking at my, at this program again that I was showing you how to link and delink your tenants from the different units. So I want to show you how to move somebody in. And so I need a unit that is online and not occupied. So I'm going to move the client in. Now for this client, I actually have an HRA determination letter. They had a packet. And so I know that this client has an application in the CAP system. And so what I want to do is I want to match with that client so I can pull that information into the system. And so let's take this client as an example. All right. All right. You'll need the HRA client ID number from the determination letter. So I have that. And then you're going to need the referral date. And I also have that. This client, their application referral date was in May. All right, so then I have all my information. I have client first name, client last name. All of this has to match with the what's on the client's determination letter that you receive in the supportive housing approved packet, right, from HRA. the HRA client ID number, and the referral date. All of this matches on the determination letter. So I will search the system, look at, like, so what the system did was, and it very quickly returned a result. So this is the client that I am wanting to find. And so you can see that they have some identifiers up here. Now, if I wanted to move the client in, I would press proceed, but I'm not going to do that right now. But you do press, I'm going to show you how to move in a client from your referral roster. Okay, so we'll go through the whole move-in form. I just wanted to show you this client search function. All right, so that's when you have an application on the client, an approved application, and the determination letter. So I'm going to exit this just for our demo purposes. So I didn't do anything, right? It just searched for the client, and then now I'm going to show you. Okay, so this is that is for New York 1 and 2 units. So you should have an application on that client. But say I'm moving into a community unit here, 2J. And so the community units, you probably don't have an approved application. So how are you going to move a client in? So let's do this. This test client will be Craig Test. And I don't have an HRA ID number. I don't have a referral date because this client did not come through CAPS. It did not, the client came to us through another kind of referral mechanism. And so I already know that I'm not going to be pulling any information from the HRA system, right? So what I will do is I will go ahead. I don't have this information, so I'm just going to go ahead, put the first and last name, and then I'm going to hit search. So then it will say, please check the client's determination letter and ensure the information entered is correct. Referral dates on applications prior to 1/1/2013 are not available for matching. All right, so what does that mean? Okay, so what that means is we did not migrate data over to the new system prior to 1/1/2013. So if you did have an HRA ID number and entered it, but it was prior to 1/1/2013, you're not going to get a match on that client either, even though you have a determination letter on the client, okay? But for most of the units, like community units and some of the Gen Pop units, you will not have any kind of HRA application or information on the client because they came in through a different referral source. Or with like the Gen Pop, that was prior to when HRA was doing determinations for the Gen Pop category. All right, hopefully that is clear. So I entered Craig Test, and now I'm going to proceed. So then what it's doing is it's just asking me for simple demographics so that we can track Craig Test in that community unit. So Craig Test has a social security number. So I enter that. And then Craig Test, his birthday. Need to go. Let's say April 23rd, gender male, and then I'm going to submit. And then again, this is the move-in information, but I'm going to go through this when I go through your referral roster. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of this, but that's to demonstrate to you the difference between if you have an HRA packet or you don't, and how you can move your tenants into your tenant roster, depending on the unit and depending on the information that you have on the client. So I'm going to exit this. And then for Ana Gonzalez Apartments, I want to go to my referral roster. So I'll have to select the program, hit go. And then you can see here, I have 3 referrals in pending, and this is all the information on it. So this, I received these referrals just recently, so I'm gonna act on them as soon as I can, which is now. So what I wanted to do is show you how to move in a client from your referral roster. So I'm gonna take this client. I can review the application packet, right? So that's one of the things that I can do is I can look at any of the documents in the application packet. Or what I'm going to do now is I'm going to update the outcomes. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that I interviewed the client on a certain date and time. Yes, the interview was conducted. The outcome was accepted. Now we know that like a lot of times there may not be, there's other outcomes here, you know, like the client may not have been accepting of the program. That's one outcome. The housing provider may not feel that the client was appropriate for their program. And you can see here that there's a number of reasons why the provider selected that. But in this case, we're gonna take the happy path to show you how to do a move-in. And so the client was accepted. That was the clinical outcome. And then we also understand that there's sometimes a leasing component. So you can do pending approval of like, say, the leasing function of your program if you have that. Or in this case, we're gonna go the simple path, the happy path, to move the client in. We're gonna move the client in on, so we did the interview the 22nd. Gonna move in, or the 21st, we're gonna move in the 22nd. And then look at that. It shows me all of my available apartments that are online. So I can go ahead, I know that this particular tenant is going into 1Q. This 215 is the share of the rent. This person is on SSI. And then I will transmit. That is not something you would probably get as a kind of pop-up. This client is actually New York 1 and 2 approved. But if your tenant eligibility did not match the eligibility for the unit, you may get this. But if you move them in, you move them in. And so if you are sure that that's the unit and that's the tenant, then you're moving them in. And you see that I updated my referral roster. That tenant is no longer on here. And I just have the other 2 pending. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to my tenant roster to look at that unit. Now you see here, I moved this client 249366 into 1Q. And this is the pop-up info button that Robin was describing in her presentation. This means that you move the client in and then it's gone to coordinated entry for verification of the move-in, okay? So we have that. All right, so that is hopefully a good and clear explanation of moving in a tenant to your tenant roster when you have an application and when you don't have an application. And so now I'd like to show you in the system how you will do your TAD. And so like I said at the beginning, the reason for this training is because we did not have all of the requirements on the TAD, but you're going to see what is going to be needed for this particular site. So, you know, I'm in Ana Gonzalez Apartments, and you can see that when I go to the TAD, that I'm going to have some outstanding tasks to be done on my rosters. So why don't I go and take a look at how I'm doing on my TADs. All right, so I mentioned it was Ana Gonzalez, so I'm gonna go to this site. You see the action column. I'm gonna submit the TAD. So what's the first thing I see? Oh, I see. Hold on. I forgot to do something in the tenant roster. I wanted to show something. Hold on. Okay, I'm going back to my tenant roster real quick. I want to do something. I want to delink these clients. All right. I want them to, and then I'm going to delink that. Okay. All right. I want to show you the tasks. Okay, so I did not assign these clients in my tenant roster. So that is then gonna be reflected in my TAD. So we'll go back to the TAD. All right. All right. Yeah, having a little bit of a, oh, okay. It's just being a little slow here. Sorry for that. No. Here we go. All right. There we go. All right. So as you can see, the TAD starts with, this is great. Like the system is very, it tries to be very intuitive with folks. So it's saying here, you see that it has the orange time icon next to the unit roster. That means you have tasks to do in your unit roster, right? So what do I have to do in my unit roster? Unit features. There's 6 units that have missing unit features. What else do I have to do in my unit roster? Rental subsidies. Also 4 units with missing rental subsidies. There may be an overlap here. We'll see. The referral roster is actually a green check mark. And there's a good reason for that. If you remember when we were in the referral roster, both the referrals that were left, I moved one of the clients in, but the other 2 referrals were in pending status. And so that's okay. As long as at the time you transmit your TAD report, the referrals are in pending status, you will not have to provide an outcome on them. But if they are overdue, and that the referrals become overdue 2 weeks after they have been transmitted to you, you will need to provide some kind of outcome on those referrals. All right. And then the tenant roster, I also have the orange time icon, not the green check icon, which says I'm all set. This says I have more tasks to do, right? Okay, so let's go through the TAD. So this is what it looks like. That gives you, so I went over, you know, what it is saying I need to do. So the system is letting me know. So I go down to this part of the TAD. It looks a lot like my unit roster, right? But it's going to look different because it's going to show me when I have something outstanding. So you see here, for this here, the info button tells me for this particular unit, this is where I'm missing unit features and rental subsidies. So I don't even need to go back to my unit roster. I can do it right here in my tab. I can click here. I can edit the unit. So now you see, this is what I'm missing. This has a private bathroom and kitchen. So those are the unit features. And for this unit, there is no rental subsidy. I will save that. It saved successfully. And then you see, I don't have the unit highlighted any longer. So I scrolled again. I'm up to my unit 1Y. Here you can see again, unit features and rental subsidies are outstanding. Don't need to go back to my unit roster. I can do it right here. Oh, look, I can't do anything with this particular unit. So that's going to be an issue. So what is that? That says vacancy verification is not done, can't modify unit. So that was the info pop-up that we were describing, where you would need to contact HRA vacancy team and make sure they have the information they need in order to verify that the unit is online, okay? So that's a good demonstration of that. So once that's done, I would be able to go in and do that. Let's go to some other units. All right, so 4T. Oops. It just, it was just a little finicky. I think I'll be okay. Let me go back to that unit that I was in before. Ah, there we go. Let me try again. You know, the system has a little hiccup every once in a while, but we're in UAT as well. All right, so back to 4T, private bathroom, kitchen. There we go, save. There we go. And still my unit roster. So this unit is also good to go. I'm going to make the unit online. We're going to select some of these. You can see like you can fairly quickly navigate and complete the units. Going back and forth a little bit here. So I'm going to edit that one. Already had that. It's wonderful. I think I just have one more wanted to do here to illustrate. And let's see. All right. So now it's letting me know I still have one unit, and I called that out. There's nothing you can do about that one unit until it's resolved with HRA vacancy. And so that's something that will need to get done. But let me move on because I can't do anything. I can save all of this. All of that work is saved. It's in the system now. I can go back to it later once everything's done, so I can complete my unit roster once I've had that discussion with HRA vacancy. So then you see here my referral roster. Like I was saying, these are impending, so I'm good to go. That's why I have the green check mark. And then the tenant roster, I delinked those clients so that I could show you that if you had them, if you didn't do it in your tenant roster, you could do it here now. And so what I could do is I could assign the client to 1P. Yeah. And then assign the client. And you see the system's pretty good. It shows you the contract, shows you the unit name. That's why unit naming is very important when you're in your unit roster as well. So there we go. I'm going to assign that client. All right. And then look, I get a green check mark for my tenant roster. Wonderful. All right. And so I think we showed you all the tasks of the tenant rosters, and then you can go to your the actual TAD report. So this is still showing that you have something to do, and you can see that that on that one unit, there's a handy dandy kind of summary up here that you can look at, but then the one thing you have outstanding on this TAD, and it's showing you right at the top, is that there's a move-in pending verification. So that was the move-in with that is in the system. It's okay. I think you can go ahead and do that unit, and then there you can if you are in your tenant roster, you can also move clients in and out if that's to update your tenant roster. And then what you're doing is you are clicking the verification that yes, everything is correct. And so this is your attestation that you're sharing your information and it's correct information. And then you hit submit. I'm not going to hit submit on this, but you see I got a green check mark with my TAD. And the reason for that is that in the system, we don't have the TAD requirements yet. And so when you do this starting July 1st, and in this unit roster was not completed, you would not get a green check mark here. You would not be able to transmit it. And that's the whole purpose for our training. So hopefully I've gone over everything that I needed to. That's kind of there are other things I could show you in the system, but I just wanted to give you an overview during this training to let you know, basically and generally what you're going to need to do in order to, and every supportive housing provider is going to have their own individual kind of tasks that are going to need to be done in the system. So we will leave it there, and I will ask Robin if there were any other questions that came up that I could maybe illustrate in the system that were related to the TADs.
So surprisingly, or not surprisingly, Craig, there were no questions during that last portion of the presentation. And I think that just speaks to how thoroughly you went over all of the different pieces of the TAD, right? How to complete each of your rosters, what to do if you do have missing information, exactly how to correct it, and then how to submit it. Okay, there is a question in the Q&A about emails stating that their TAD is overdue.
Yes.
And what do I do since this doesn't go into effect until July 1st? And that's actually a great clarification.
Okay.
TADs have been required to be submitted since we launched, right? Beginning October 26th, every month, whoever is responsible for submitting the TAD will get the email reminding them. And then once it's overdue, you get the overdue reminders. The difference is the system has been allowing you to submit the TADs without having your rosters complete, right? The system just lets you go ahead and submit it. The difference is beginning July 1st, the system will not let you submit it. You'll get the error messages, and then you will have to go back and make those corrections before you're able to submit it. That's the difference.
Yeah, and just to reinforce that, so the rules are, and none of this changed from, the old system, the PAC system, into the new system, CAPS. The rules were always, you're able to transmit your TAD on the 1st of every month. There is a 10-day grace to get that done. So the 1st through the 10th, you're still considered on time with HRA. After the 10th, you're considered overdue. And so that is still the rule. So you may or may not have been transmitting your TADs. If you're not transmitting your TADs, please do. And hopefully this training has helped you to, have the confidence to go into the system, look at all of your rosters, complete them, and then like I showed you, once you have all the green check marks, you can transmit. Now, right now, if you're really struggling with something and you're not able to get all of the green check marks, the system will allow you to transmit your TAD up until June 30th. After June 30th, all of that is done. We're going to the TAD requirements. And so you will need to complete all the tasks in the system it's asking you to do. And so we're hoping that that is very clear to everyone who is on this training, and spread the word. Tell everyone. We're hoping to really get the word out on this. And we have a couple more trainings coming up as well. So if you missed this one, of course, the network is going to be, or the network recorded this training, but also we have a couple other live trainings like we just did, Robin and I. It's the Robin and Craig show. And you can catch those as well. And then you would have an opportunity to ask questions along the way, like you did at this training. But if you have colleagues or anything, spread the word. There's a COC training coming up, and there's a CSH training coming up.
And Craig, I did just put those details in the chat, or sorry, in the Q&A.
Oh, okay, great. Yep. Thank you, Robin. So I think that pretty well does it for this training. And, Robin and I want to thank everyone who participated and who, watched the presentation and the demo. And we'd also like to thank Tiara and Emily at the network for providing us this forum, and we hope that people felt that this was valuable in terms of training, and we will be sending out materials to everyone on this training through the network, and we do appreciate their support. So if there are no other questions, I think that we could leave it there.
Yeah, and I'll just echo Craig. Thanks to all of the providers who attended this training, as well as all of the providers who are in constant contact with me and my team, really working so hard to get your data correct in the system. So I did see some really specific questions in the chat, so I responded to please go ahead and email me directly, or TAD liaison, or HRA CAS support, and we will get those addressed. And again, a huge thanks to the network. I think we're gonna turn it over to Emily and Tiara for any closing words.
Yeah, no closing words here. Thank you for such an informative and worthwhile presentation. We always appreciate having you both.
Thank you. All right. Well,
thanks, everyone.
We'll leave it there. Happy Friday, everyone. Get out there, get some fresh air, wear your mask, and consider getting vaccinated if you haven't already. It's really great. All right. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.